Good morning, campers. Welcome to Camp Hotelier. I'm your camp leader, Shikai.
And I'm your camp leader, Zoe Sor, your favorite dino hotelier, and we are your hosts for today.
Zoe, balita ko we have a very special guest with us today to give us a gist of what it's like to be a hotelier.
I guess we are all ecstatic to meet and learn from our guest speaker as we tackle the hospitality industry's customer interaction before and during the pandemic. So without further ado, we would like to call on Camp Commander Alisa to formally introduce our guest speaker. Hi, Alisa!
Thank you, Camp Leader Zoe, and good morning to my fellow campers. To introduce our guest speaker for today is a graduate from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, with a bachelor's degree in Hotel and Restaurant Administration, batch 1974. She is a pioneer who worked in Philippine Plaza, Westin Philippine Plaza, now Sofitel Philippine Plaza, Manila, in the first 16 years after taking her degree. She started as a reservations clerk and worked her way up to continue to be of service as a reservations supervisor, a reservations manager, then an assistant director of sales. Because of her diligence and commitment to serve in the industry, she was given the opportunity to work in China as a director of marketing in West Taipingyang Hotel, Shanghai. After a year, she decided to transfer and work at Conrad Hotel in Hong Kong and serve as a reservations manager, after which she became the director of corporate reservations and electronic distribution at Shangri-La Head Office, Hong Kong. After working for about 40 years in the hospitality industry, she is now on her retirement, living comfortably in the Philippines with her family. Through the years of her extensive and truly outstanding accomplishments, it is commendable to mention that she stands as one of the notable hospitality leaders in the country and an inspiration to aspiring hoteliers. With this, I am pleased to introduce to everyone our distinguished guest speaker, Miss Agnes Battad.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning po, Ma'am Agnes. Welcome to our show po. First and foremost, we appreciate you for taking your time to be with us today and later on to chat with us about your work experience in the industry, specifically on providing excellent customer service to your guests for the past years. But before we start, we would like to ask, how have you been during this time of a pandemic? Is everything okay as of the moment? And are you enjoying your retirement despite what seems to be an unending quarantine?
Definitely, because now I have all the time in the world to watch Netflix and to read novels online.
I agree. And I think what we can do for now po is to really make use of our time practically to improve ourselves and to develop our skills using the resources we currently have, such as technology po, but also to enjoy an amount of entertainment like Netflix and reading novels, like you mentioned. And I also think we need these things to help us cope with the current situation. Is there anything else, Paul, that you're doing during the quarantine?
No, I think these are the things that I missed when I was working, imagine, for 40 years. It was always work from 9 to almost 7 because of the travel time. The entire time was in the office. So downtimes would only be on weekends. And not enough for me to really go and watch all the K-drama that we have here in the Philippines. So I think I'm quite blessed to have all of these new shows that they now have compared to what we had when we were still young.
That's nice po. Thank you po for answering our check-in question. And to officially start, since a lot of our viewers are curious about how you started, we would like to ask po, what or who made you pursue a career in the hospitality industry?
Well, when I started in UP, that was way back in 1970, they didn't offer HRA. So I went in and enrolled in business administration, BA, because I was not so clear on what career I really wanted for myself. Luckily, on my, I think, second sem or second year in BA, somebody came over and started to introduce this new course, which is HRA, a 4-year course, and sort of told us the entire scope of what to expect for this new particular career path. And I went home and discussed it with my dad, and he said, "Oh, that would be a good opportunity for you, so why don't you shift?" So I am, I think, second batch of the original HRA in the University of the Philippines. And after going through the curriculum and some of the subjects, I realized that it's a bit more interesting than just business administration, because the subjects covered were quite diverse. We had tourism, we had a lot of F&B activities, we even have microbiology. And elective, they recommended that we take French. So I had 1 and 2 advanced course in French, primarily to be able to read the menus if you do F&B. So it was a very good decision for me to go through the entire gamut of hotel and restaurant administration.
That was indeed inspiring to hear from you, Pa, especially to our fellow future hoteliers listening. I do agree that there's a lot of opportunities in the hospitality industry to come our way. With that, I would like to invite my fellow campers who are excited to hear from you and to have the honor to ask you the next questions. May I call on Camp Leader Zoe? Hi, Zoe.
Thank you, Camp Commander Alisa. I'm sure some of our campers are curious and would like to ask questions to our dear speaker. So now may we call on Camper Pat Reyes for the first question.
Hello, Miss Agnes. I am Camper Pat, currently taking BS Hospitality Management. And I would like to ask, how did you adapt to a new environment in a workplace? Consider that we will be entering the hospitality industry in a few years, and I would like to ask for some tips to have a smooth start at work.
Usually, when you're new in the office, your direct support will be giving you extensive training. So it's very important that you really learn fast about what the scope of your job is. And basically, you have to deal well with your co-workers. So teamwork is very important. And when you're there, you don't know anything, it would be good to look at possible mentors within the group for you to be able to follow how they're doing things and sort of emulate their behavior so that you're able to adapt easily to that environment. And of course, you have to follow the instructions of your direct report.
I would take note of that, ma'am. Thank you very much.
For our next camper, let us call on Lily Dalde to ask her question.
Hello, Miss Agnes. I am Camper Lily, currently taking BS Hospitality Management, and I would like to ask, what characteristics should a hospitality leader have in the workplace? Is there a standard that leaders must practice to work in the industry?
Well, very important if you're a leader that you're knowledgeable enough to be able to guide your direct reports. So one of the things that usually gain respect for a leader is if they know exactly what's supposed to be done and for them to be able to convey the knowledge to their direct reports, not just simply delegating something and not being able to explain in detail how it's supposed to be done. That's one thing. The other is, if you're a leader, you have to focus a lot on the importance of training. So each and every staff that you hire must really undergo a structured training program so that they're able to independently function on their own with minimum supervision. And then it's an ongoing process, so you have to make sure that you're able to monitor their performance very well and give them the necessary guidelines. And as a leader, it's important that you're able to interact well with your co-department heads so that you're able to resolve problems or issues with them for the convenience of the operation of your department. You have to also, as a leader, have good relationship with other department heads, not only with your direct reports.
I personally agree with you, ma'am. I think that the standards and characteristics that you've mentioned are very important for inspiring leaders like us. Thank you very much, Miss Agnes.
Our next question will be from Camper Pearl.
Hello, Miss Agnes. I am Camper Pearl Icaro, currently taking BS Hospitality Management. And in line with the previous question, since you mentioned some characteristics of a good hospitality leader, how do you deal with conflict and confrontation in the workplace?
Uh, it, it's something that you cannot avoid because every staff has a different personality. So whenever I have problems, I always focus on behavior rather than very different criteria when counseling them. But very important that if you have a problem with your staff, you have to make sure that if you dress them down, you do it in private, closed door, not in front of the other colleagues, because otherwise it will be very demeaning on their part. And very important for you to have a one-on-one discussion on why that particular conflict arose, and you have to listen to both sides. So if there are two staff that don't have any, that have some problems with each other, first you listen to one, why and how it happened, and then you also have to give an opportunity to the other before you have a separate session that you let them to have a face-to-face interaction, because sometimes it becomes very emotional and your role is to be an objective participant, so you'll be able to sort of guide them when the discussion become heated. But my basic guideline is not to embarrass the staff in front of their peers or other people within the office.
I agree po. Conflicts take place due to lack of communication and understanding. Communication is always the key in everything. Thank you for that answer, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's time for our icebreaker entitled What Do You Meme? This segment's objective on today's episode is to present you memes, which are comical images that speak about a popular culture, in our case, in the hospitality industry. And we'd like to ask you what your thoughts as you view these memes. Are these images relatable for you based on your work experience? And what are your opinions about the particular culture? Is it a thumbs up? Like, is it something you relate to and you agree on? Something that you will always or soon be part of our culture? Or is it a thumbs down? Like, is it something that you relate to but disagree on and does not fit our industry and hope that this culture will end? For our first meme,
I agree. One does not simply cancel a hotel reservation on the day of arrival. So that is something that is sort of a not a good thing for us in the industry, because it will sort of distort your occupancy level. Plus the fact that especially if you're running full, your forecast and all everything else. So as a courtesy, if somebody has a problem for arriving in the hotel, at least they have to do it beforehand. But of course, there would be instances where it's an emergency. They will do it on a very, very limited basis. A hotel in itself would not welcome these types of people that does last minute cancellations.
Thank you po. Okay, for the second meme, we have when a customer demands a discount for no reason just because they want one.
How should I say it? Having worked in the hotel industry, majority of people when they call you, they will always say, "Oh, what about my discount?" Even if they're not entitled to a discount. So it's the, I think if somebody books a hotel, it's an expectation on their end to get a discount. And where I work, we always have what you call courtesy discount. If somebody says, "Can I have a discount?" As an agent, I'm allowed to quote, of course, we can give you a 10% courtesy discount. The only thing that it becomes an exception is when you're running full. But if you're not full, my staff are able to say that they are willing to give a 10% discount. But if you're running full and you're going to displace a higher paying guest, then you have to stand firm and say, I'm sorry, but we don't have a special discount unless you are a part of a corporate program or a holder of a special membership. Then it becomes a given that you are extended a discount or a courtesy rate.
Okay.
So I don't know whether I should do this or this.
For you, po, ma'am, is it a thumbs up or thumbs down?
I cannot do a thumbs up and a thumbs down because it all depends on your occupancy level and your need for that client. So it's something that will happen no matter how we progress in this
It
industry.
depends po.
Yeah.
Thank you po for that. Okay, so for the next meme we have, when a customer is annoying and you have to be professional, screams internally. Is
I
this
usually-
relatable po?
Agree. But I don't scream internally. I usually hum a song in my head while listening to a guest shouting at the top of his voice. It sort of eases out your expression. So while I'm listening to him, I will be humming a song in my mind so that at least it cools me down so I don't interact or also get angry with the client. So there are so many ways to do this. If you want to scream internally, then it's fine provided the client doesn't hear you. So there are ways to ease out the situation like this. And there's a lot of annoying clients. If you want to work in the hospitality industry, it's something that you have to be used to.
I agree po. Is there any other additional tips po when it comes to dealing with this
Yes,
situation?
annoying client, you just have to listen. The more you become defensive, the more it aggravates the situation. So, in most cases, our tendency is just to apologize. Because when you apologize to the client, no matter how angry he becomes, he normally would become calmer. When you say, okay, I'm sorry, sir, next time it won't happen again, no matter whether it's his problem or the hotel's problem. Anybody that apologizes to you will normally allow you to ease out on your anger. So I always train my staff not to become defensive and just to accept and say, we're sorry, next time we will make sure that it doesn't happen. Okay?
Thank you po. That's a lot of insights po and helpful tips when it comes to dealing with these situations. Thank you po. For the next meme, we have here, getting ready to deliver service with a smile, but I don't have to smile. It has to do with the uniform po, since it's required to have the mask.
I don't agree. Especially now during the pandemic, if you're in front of the agent, the mask will not prevent you from smiling because the eyes will still smile. And the way you talk with a smile is totally different when you are talking without a smile. So you really have to maintain that courtesy even during the pandemic, even if you have a mask. There are many ways for the client or the guest to be able to perceive whether you are smiling or not. In fact, one of the things that I always make sure as SOP is when they answer phones, they have to answer it with a smiling voice. And in most reservation centers, you have a mirror in front of the agent so they can see themselves smiling while entertaining a client. Because if you're on the other side of the phone, you would know whether the agent is smiling or not. So it's an SOP to be able to enhance customer service. Sometimes that we put mirrors in the near the equipment of the agent.
We actually studied SOP po, and we didn't know that you have to have that voice na you're also smiling. You
Smiling
sound like
voice.
you're a smiling voice, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice insight po.
And you
And
cannot have a smiling voice if you're not smiling. So I don't know how. So it's important that you are able to see yourself smiling to be able to convey a smiling voice.
opo. That's a helpful tip po. Thank you po for that, Tita.
Okay.
I think the last meme po, we have AI robot. What desserts can I bring you, ma'am? We have apples, blackberries, and raspberry Pi. What is your reaction po for this?
Well, I don't know, it should be like this because you know that everybody is trying to develop this type of service wherein we will soon be replaced by robots. But I guess in this particular instance, it's not a personalized service that you're able to convey. And maybe it may not be the right place for the robot to function. When you're trying to have a personalized service, no matter how well they do this, it's not going to convey the right attitude and may not generate customer satisfaction. But we should not discount the fact that sooner or later they will come out with enhanced robotic way to handle some of the services that we have in the hospitality industry. Maybe not here, maybe car service or whatever, but not, I guess, in trying to offer dessert because it takes a lot more interaction than saying all of this predefined, how should I say, predefined words for the robot to be able to convey that particular transaction.
I think po it's good if it's a balance of robots and human beings. Maybe robots can be a support. They can be an aid to make the transactions efficient.
True. Or maybe for them to present the bill, that would
Yes,
be
po.
fine, but not when it comes to offering during the the eating process for them to interact with the client like this.
Opo. Especially with dealing with complaints, I think it's better if it's a human being po.
True.
Thank you po for that.
And that concludes our icebreaker. Now, we're curious po. You have been in our industry for a long time already. Can you share with us your greatest successes or accomplishments in your work history?
Yeah, I think because I was in that particular decade that the automation process was in its infancy, was nil at that point in time. So when I was in Westin, I was part of the project team to convert from manual process to an automated PMS, property management system. So that in itself is a major process from Cardex system into an automated reservation from office accounting process. So that was my first introduction to system. And then when I joined Shangri-La, almost all the systems that we initiated, I was directly involved in that. So when I joined Shangri-La, there were at least around 28 hotels with different systems, with HIS, IBM, and so forth. So my CIO, Chief Information Officer, CIO, was how I would refer to as a genius. So when we came on board maybe a few years after him, he said, Agnes, we have to make sure that we have what we call a common platform. So it's important for us to be able to come out with central procedures, to be able to train all the 28 staff to be able to be on the same page. We have to have a common platform. So what we did was to change all the PMSs across 28 hotels to Fidelio. At that time, it was Fidelio. And make sure that they are all in the same version. So we have to train 28 hotels on a new system that is Fidelio, that is standardized, having standard configuration, so that when we visit a hotel, we're looking at the same page. And I think that was a very, very strategic move on the part of Shangri-La. because afterwards, I think Mandarin in Hong Kong and Peninsula also try to do the same thing for their batch of hotels. And then after that, I was also involved in setting up a central reservation system. Before, when you want to cross sell, it's all using email or mail. So the first CRS we had was what we call a decentralized environment. Each hotel was installed a Fidelio CRS, and every time a guest would call one hotel, they have the opportunity to cross sell all 28 hotels. The only problem with having a decentralized system is that the focus of each of the hotel would be for their own hotel. So it becomes a secondary nature on their part to make an effort to cross sell other properties. So if somebody says, oh, I want to go, if you're in Hong Kong, I want to go to Singapore, is it possible for me to book that hotel? And you would say yes, but you don't go to the effort of trying to sell which hotel, because in Singapore, we had the resort hotel, we had the traders hotel, we had the Singapore hotel, Shangri-La hotel. So it needs a bit more, how should I say, expertise on all the agents to know all the 27 hotels in the portfolio for them to effectively cross-sell. So we migrated from decentralized to centralized, and that was when we introduced Opera, which I think you guys will be using, the Micros Opera platform, to have a central area to cross-sell for the hotels. At that time, we envisioned there 5 contact centers. Contact centers for us would be to cross-sell all 28 hotels in that part of the world. So we established a contact center in Tokyo, in London, in Sydney, in KL, and also in Hong Kong. So instead of them calling directly the hotel, they call a toll-free number. So that's part of the customer service. It makes it easy for them to book any Shangri-La hotel wherever they are, calling a toll-free line that is free. So if I were in London, I call the London toll-free number, and they can book any of the 28 hotels free of charge. So that's where we had the centralized system. But we also found out with these 5 hubs that it was not so easy because we had latency problems, the exchange of data. So eventually, Shangri-La only had 2 contact centers, one in KL to handle non-China, and one in Guangzhou to handle China. So that's how it evolved through the years that I was there. And then also, aside from CRS, we introduced a revenue management system. Before, we called it a yield system, and we identified ideas. I don't know whether you've heard of ideas. This one is based in the States, in Minnesota. And in Shangri-La, what I'm so lucky with is every time we have a new initiative like a system, we just don't pinpoint with one list. I would shortlist maybe around 6 to 10 providers, and we go to their area. So if we have it in San Francisco, in Seattle, we go visit that place together with the group. We ask them to present their product, and then we sort of critique it and assess it. And my biggest advantage is, as I go through each of the different provider, I'm able to pick up features, which I think is very good if it is in our own hotel chain. So I was able to influence the development based on all the nice features that I came across during all of this trip. So we installed a yield system. You know what a yield system is, right? Do you know how? So it's at the back end. If you are working on your PMS and you say, I want to arrive on November 1st to November 3, I need a single room. What rate can you confirm to me? The yield system will calculate to be able to present you with what would be the best available rate that you should quote the client. And it gives you a sort of selection, so you can have a high, medium, low rate, and it allows you to optimize your average rate by following the yield recommendation. So we went into that. Also, I was involved in interfaces. You know what GDS is? Global Distribution System. These are the airline systems. That's the Galileo, Amadeus, Sabre. When I'm a guest and I want to book flight, they provide one-stop shop. So they will say, you can book your hotel, your flight, your land arrangement. So we as hoteliers have dealings or partnerships with GDS. So I was involved with interfaces so that when they book in the GDS system, the reservation will go straight to the CRS, which is in the central site, and then electronically flow down into the property management without manual intervention. So that is one of the interface I was involved with. The other one is on OTA. These are online travel agents like Expedia, Booking.com, Agoda. Have you booked in some of those when you travel? So we've had partnership with them so that when they book through their system, it falls through CRS and down into property level. So they're looking at one single image inventory. What you see in the PMS will be what they will see as availability and rates in GDS, and also what they will see in the OTA. So that is what you call a single image platform. And my role there was to be able to support data integrity, which means that whatever you see in our own Shangri-La site and all the different booking centers would be the same that they will see in GDS and also in OTA. And rate parity is whatever rate is available if you call the hotel should be the same rate that displays at their end when they're trying to book in another booking center. So that only happens if interfaces are in place and if everything is electronically linked. So that is why working in Shangri-La has been very beneficial to me because when I was there, these were the stages and all of this were being introduced. And being in charge of reservations and distribution, I basically was heading the project team to make sure that it gets implemented property to property. Okay, so that was my involvement in technology. And I guess the biggest part before I left Shangri-La a year or two was we converted reservations to what you call customer sales. I just mentioned to my boss, I said, you know, I have problems with our Shangri-La offices across the group. By that time, we were 80 hotels. I said, what is this? The tenure is very short. It appears that reservations is becoming a revolving door or a stepping stone. So when you apply for a job, usually in the hotel, you would offer reservations. So eventually you will become sales manager. So I said, what's the difference between a phone sales versus a direct face-to-face? And I said, if you want a very good and high producing office, you have to try to match sales with phone sales, which is reservation. So before I left, they basically upgraded the salaries of the reservation agents to be equal to a sales representative and the director of sales to the customer sales manager. So that was a very big leap from our end. But at the same time, we were able to hire cream of the crop people because we're able to offer them a very good salary. So you can imagine the incentive, the motivation for them to perform an excellent job. So those were one of my biggest achievements in Shangri-La. There are more, but I think it will take us long.
That was indeed an exquisite share, Miss Agnes, about how technological advancements had helped us provide better customer service through the years. From manual system to book reservations to a centralized system. It was a lot and very much inspiring. Thank you, Miss Agnes.
You're welcome.
Grabe, that was so inspiring, diba? Ako po, Miss Agnes, I have a question. Can you give us a glimpse of your work on a daily basis, be it like a day in a life? Because I'm sure we are all curious on how the work environment actually is. And in line with what Lily asked earlier, are all the standards we learn in school applied in the real world?
The standards in school are very minimal compared to what happens on in the different offices. One of my biggest advantage was that because I was the corporate head, reservation head, I was able to impose standards group wide across all 80 hotels that we were managing before and come out with changes in standards, enhancements, and so forth. So the standards are more specific and focused than what we learned from school. It's basically macro. From a property level, the standards are very specific. Like if you're a reservation agent, you have to answer all within 3 rings. Your forecast, if you're a manager, should be within 5 + 5 to -5 of actual occupancy. What other standards do we have? Abandon rate should not exceed 3% during the day. So that's still one of the technological innovations that we did in Shangri-La. We bought a system that is attached to the phone system that is able to capture the performance per agent and able to gauge your conversion rate or how many abandoned calls happened while the call was transferred to your own extension number. Very important because if you're doing phone sales and you don't have all of these special tools, how do you know how much an agent is abandoning? Like, for example, if you're not feeling good, the way you answer a phone could mean that you've lost potential for a suite booking. Or just because you are delayed in answering one call, the guest decides to put down his call and go and select another competitor across the street. So tools are very important in enhancing customer service because it also puts the staff on their toes to be able to deliver. So if you're not feeling good, you cannot afford to be sitting there and fielding calls and losing calls. At the same time, when you go on breaks and so forth, it's important that you're conscious that if there is less people and it's already how we call a peak hour, then how would you be able to manage the calls? So if you have all the tools as a reservation manager, you know how to do your staffing level. So you tell your staff, oh, if you take a break, everybody should be back at 11 to 12 because this is the time that calls will be coming in. And then there will be a lull and that's when you give them their breaks. Or if there's a special day of the week that is usually bombarded with calls, you may need to supplement the number of staff that we have. So even when you do staffing, there are guidelines and standards to take note of. Like it's not before I started in reservation, I said I need one agent for every 100 rooms. But as everything got refined, I realized that it's a difference based on your market mix. So if you're a hotel with 90% individual traffic and 10% groups, you will need more agents to field calls. If you're a hotel with 90% groups and 10% individual phone sales, then you will need less number of staff. So it's very flexible. But standards are there to help your agent to perform well and to perform optimum level.
Indeed. So whatever we learn in school, or be it in school or in the workplace, everything is essential to forming great leaders in the hospitality industry. We definitely learn as we go. Kumbaga, we learn as we also experience it.
I agree with you, Zoe, that we learn as we experience it. And with what Miss Agnes said, that it's different from what we learn in the school and from what we actually experience in the workplace. And for our last question, for all who are listening, Miss Battad, what is your message or tip for the future generation who would like to pursue a career in the service industry?
I guess it's very important for you to assess yourself. Patience is very important, but what I wish I could buy when I used to head be working is if I can just buy common sense. Common sense is what drives people to be able to perform well. So when you start to hire, of course you'll be the one hired, but assess what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. So if you want to aspire for a job in sales, you have to think, do you have that ability or that drive to interact with clients face to face? Like me, when I started, I opted for reservations because I don't like face to face sales, but I enjoy phone sales. So if you want to go towards sales, then you have to start developing today your ability to communicate. Maybe you should enroll in certain programs like the what they offer in Dale Carnegie on how you could improve your communication level. There's a lot of program available, and by the time you get hired, you already are in that position to impress your interviewer. And very important also is that you should just not, because you are a hospitality graduate, that you immediately want to become a supervisor or manager. That's difficult. If you can start from the bottom rung and work yourself up, well and good. It doesn't mean that you have to stay long in that bottom rung, but you learn from the details that you learn will hone you into become an effective manager, because the more you know, the easier it is for you to train. And very important, when you become a manager, to be able to hire the right people. Don't get impressed with people that have a gift of gab, but when it comes to implementation, they're lost because what they can only do is delegate and make presentations. So you have to assess. Now, if you go into your practicum, that is your chance to know which field you think you would make good. So keep that in mind. Maybe food and beverage is your cup of tea, or maybe marketing is, or uh, other areas of the hotel. So many opportunities. But what I'm saying is, if it happens that you just have to grab a job, don't think that because you got the wrong job that it's hopeless. You have to learn well, hone your skills. The more you know in the hotel, the better. Because if you aspire to become a general manager, you have to know all the different disciplines within the hotel. So wherever you land, then try to make the best of it. And also be able to work with your direct report. Very difficult. Sometimes you don't like your boss, and it will influence your behavior. But you have to think that however it works, your performance is the basis for you to be promoted, not your boss. So don't be affected by colleagues, by your direct report. You just have to do the best you can, and people will recognize, and they will be the one that will be recommending you for promotion if there's any vacancy. Okay.
Thank you so much, Miss Agnes, for that wonderful insight. I was struck with what you mentioned about common sense, since I'm sure my fellow campers relate as well that it's something that we're struggling with. And I think we can learn and develop from any mistakes that we have and develop common sense in general. And also with what you said po in the latter part, that the more that you know the hotel, the better that you will work in the industry. I think that it's better that we immerse ourselves practically in the hotel. That's why we will have our practicum in the next few months.
Yeah. Maybe not just the hotel, because the hospitality industry is so wide, right?
Yes,
so you may go into cruise line, you may go into, some even go as far as hospital service. So wherever you are, because now it's very difficult for you because the vacancies are very scarce. So it's not easy to land a job. So just take what you can and learn from it. But don't waste your time being in that position and not learning anything. In fact, wherever you are, every day you learn. That's why I've lasted in reservations, because it's not a stagnant discipline. Every day I learn something new, and it has expanded so much through the years that I was there, with all the new tools and the new learning. So for you too, that will happen.
Wonderfully said. Thank you po, Miss Agnes. Ushikai?
What a day! All I can say is that this talk with Miss Agnes Battad was truly invaluable and inspiring for me personally. And no doubt it is the same with our fellow campers. For someone who works for customer service, particularly in the reservation department, it is indeed a pleasure to listen to her story, along with her thoughts and opinions on what makes an astounding leader in the service industry.
Once again, I would like to thank our speaker, Miss Agnes Battad, for allotting her time in sharing her experiences and thoughts in this Guru of the Day entitled Camp Hotelier with Miss Agnes Battad. This has been your camp leader, Zoe Sor.
And I'm your camp leader, Shikai.
And I'm your Camp Commander, Elisa.
I am Camper Pat.
And I'm Camper Lily.
I am Camper Pearl.
And this is Camp Hotelier.